Well, I don't know whether I could accept that altogether, Malcolm, because you live in the North predominantly, and I don't think you could speak for the experience that I or we as Southerners have. I think a Negro catches hell all over the country being a Negro, and I think we have said from our movement, I'm speaking of Jim and the posture that Alan Morrison and I represent, that we say it is a national dilemma which has to be grappled with. It has different forms. I think in the South, it's not only emotional and psychological, but it's also physical. And I don't know whether you can put a slide rule to measure it. It's just a problem all over the nation, and we're on the threshold, I trust, of really grappling with it for the first time.
In the South, you're dealing with a wolf who lets you know where you stand. In the North, we're dealing with a fox who grins in our face and makes us think that we're getting some kind of freedom or that we're in a different place.
You are agreeing with me.
Yes, let me say that I don't think it's a fruitful discussion as to whether the thing is worse in the South or worse in the North. It's bad as anything, both places, all over the country. And it doesn't matter the shape that it takes one place or another. Now, we are in the streets in the North, in Inglewood, in California, in New York, just as we are in the streets in the South.
And then what has been accomplished?
What has been accomplished? What is being accomplished? Look at Philadelphia. Negroes are now being employed in
Negroes got a job.
All right, 4, yes. And we are continuing our pressure.
There's a million Negroes in Philadelphia.
Now, let me tell you, Minister Malcolm, that we have gotten jobs for Negroes in Safeway's grocery stores, in Kroger's grocery stores, in department stores, in seal test dairies, in concern after concern. And not 4.
Mr. Farmer.
Not 40.
Whenever you have...
But they number in the hundreds.
Whenever you have thousands of Negroes demonstrating for jobs, as was demonstrated beautifully in Philadelphia, and then the leadership settled for 4 jobs, I can't see where that's progress.
Now, let me tell you, in our campaign against the leading dairy in New York, we did not settle for 4 jobs. We did not settle for 40 jobs.
The demonstrations in Philadelphia were settled for 4 jobs.
I'm not speaking of Philadelphia demonstration. I'm speaking of the dairy that we had a boycott against. We have more than 40 jobs already, and many more are coming. Now, we're after not a token employment. We're after full employment. I'd like to say a further word on the employment. 15 years. The gap has widened slightly, which means that if we are to achieve equality, we've got to find some way for the back wheels of the car to catch up to the front wheels of the car without a collision.
Go ahead. It means that the only time the black man in this country has made any progress was when in wartime. When the white man has his back to the wall, then he lets the black man come forward a little bit. And as soon as the war is over, he tells the black man, get back off me now. And I think, sir, with all due respect to you and the others who are here, when you sit and analyze the problem as it actually is and see the hypocrisy that has been practiced by whites when they talk this love talk and equality talk, sooner or later you'll be able to see that since we don't make any progress only during wartime, it'll take another war for the black man to take any more steps in the right direction.
Minister Malcolm?
I didn't cut you off when you spoke there for 15 minutes. Moderator wouldn't let me. When you see the grit or the economic rut that our people are in, and as you point out and he points out, the union excludes us from them to keep us out, and if the union doesn't do it, management does it. We are caught in a grip between union, management, or I should say a conspiracy between the union, the management, and the government, to keep us at the bottom of the economic ladder, the bottom of the housing ladder, the bottom of the educational ladder. And after experiencing that in a country for 100 years, I don't see how you could have any hope or confidence that this same race that has been doing it is not going to continue to do it, only in a different way, with more 20th century or up-to-date or shrewd methods today than they had to use in the past.
You say that progress is achieved only in wartime.
It has only been achieved by
all right, now you say that. We're in a war now. We're in a war now. The war is being waged in the streets of Birmingham, the streets of Greensboro, the streets of Danville, Virginia.
That's not the war.
Now, wait a minute. No, this is the war.
That's not the war.
This is the war.
It's the result of the war. America is at war with Russia.
Let me pursue the point. This is the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War was not finished at all. The Revolutionary War, 1776, provided independence and freedom, in a sense, for some Americans. but excluded black Americans. This is Revolutionary War Part 2, to take those beautiful words of the Declaration of Independence, of the preamble to the Constitution, and make them a reality for black people as well as white. Now, we are waging that war. If you don't like this war, that's all right.
No, wait a minute.
Don't deny that it is a war.
Malcolm X, may I interrupt at this point and just ask Mr. Walker, who is champing at the bit over here, for his comment?
Yeah, I wanted to buttress what Jim was saying about employment. I think the Philadelphia instance is one instance we would agree with, that it is a fair commentary. I would like to know what alternative do you propose is over against what we do?
That's a fair enough question. Let's wait for a break to get the answer. Malcolm X, I'm sure that you'll want to reply to Mr. Walker's question.
Yes, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that after 400 years in this country, a country to which we've contributed our free labor, sweat, blood, we've given our lives to make it, or help make it what it is. And today, because the white man says that it's time now for us to get integration, or what he calls freedom, and many of the so-called Negroes who take him seriously and believe that what he says is he means it, they try and take advantage of it, and they end up getting beaten with police clubs or fire hoses or having dogs sicked upon them, simply because they believe what the white man says, that he intends for us to have freedom, justice, and equality. So Mr. Muhammad says, in the face of all of this, since we see that we just can't get justice here, and by justice I mean economic security, political security, social security, and so forth, the best solution is for the white man to allow the 20 million black people in this country to go back to our own home, those who want to go back to our own home and to our own people, and that the government itself should give us everything we need to go back to our own home and start life anew in our own land among our own people. And then if the government doesn't want to do that, since they don't want us to leave and they want us to stay here with them, we don't get along together, then Mr. Muhammad says the best solution is to separate part of the country here and give us a place to ourselves where we can then go and set up our own agricultural system, our own economic system, and try and do something to provide food, clothing, and shelter, and the things that our people need in order to live. In other words, give us a chance to solve our own problem among ourselves on some land of our own, instead of continually trying to force us into white society, where the white society knows we're absolutely not wanted, and a white society which knows it will never accept its ex-slave on the same level with itself as something equal with itself.
Well, of course, this kind of separatism harks back, I think, to something that Mr. Farmer said before that I'd like to pick up too. It isn't, Mr. Farmer said, I suspect he would not want to equate it.
The Negro makes a gain. The gain starts as of now.
But isn't this something less?
Because the Negro didn't make the gain. See, as long as someone is giving you something, he can always take it back. And this is the mistake this is where our people are making the mistake. We are sitting, waiting for whites.
Nobody gives the Negro anything.
I don't mean it in that sense. Either in court or out of court, we've been sitting and waiting for the man to give us some concessions. Now, whenever you ask if you're asking the white power structure for jobs, that's only a temporary solution. If you ask the white power structure for housing, that's a temporary solution. As Mr. Farmer said, where the Negro used to ask for equality, now he's asking for more. He's asking for more than equality. Well, likewise, if they give us more than equality, 10 years from now, we're going to be asking for more than that, because the problem has still not gotten a real solution.
Mr. Moderator.
Just one moment, let me finish what I'm going to say. As long as we accept a temporary solution, the problem will go unsolved. It'll be solved for you and me right now, but not for our children. If the black nations in Africa, most of which have a less number of educated Africans than exist among black people in this country, yet they can establish their own independent nations and try and create a future for their people, then Mr. Muhammad says here in America there are enough black people who profess to be educated, and when all of this with all this talk about equality with the white man, if we're equal with the white man, why can't we separate from him and set up our own government and go for ourselves and solve our own problems?
Mr. Farmer,
question.
if we can stick for a moment to this notion of compensatory action, I really think that we ought to work on this one for a moment, because it still seems to me, and it probably does seem to a number of people,
which have been similarly discriminated against, though not for so long a period of time as Negroes.
Puerto Ricans weren't enslaved. Yeah, this is a problem that stems from slavery. And this compensation, yes, sir, this compensation is coming to people who were enslaved by the white man for 400 years. The Puerto Ricans don't even fit into this picture.
Well, they do fit into it.
No,
they do fit into it.
The problem is the Negro problem. They're not lynching Puerto Ricans.
If a dark-skinned Puerto Rican went down to Mississippi, he probably would be lynched too.
Spanish, he wouldn't be lynched.
No, they don't.
It's the Negro here, and as long as he can speak Spanish or some other language, or if he ties his head up with a turban or something, he can go anywhere in Mississippi or in your home that he desires.
You're not aware of the fact, are you, that African students have been arrested in our demonstrations in the South?
When they
speak French.
When they have been mistaken for the so-called Negro in America, they've been arrested.
What I'm saying is that many Puerto Ricans are mistaken for Negroes. I do not think discrimination stems only from slavery.
Let me turn to Mr. Walker.
You say that Mr. Farmer's idea of compensatory treatment of the Negro has portents of disaster. It does have portents of disaster for the system from which the Negro community is suffering. And over against that, I don't think Malcolm X's analogy of the nations in Africa and Asia that are freeing themselves, you have there on the one hand a black or brown majority, whereas the Negro community in America is a black or brown minority. And I don't think the analogy quite holds water, and this is why we...
But your whole philosophy comes out of India. This nonviolent thing is based upon the 400 million Indians doing passive sit-down on 100,000 whites, and you use that. Well, in this country, you're still a minority, yet you're going to use tactics that was used by a dark minority in another land.
I think this shows how little you know about nonviolence, because Gandhi began his campaign among the Indians in South Africa, who are a minority.
And they're still they're still a minority, and they still have the problem. But Gandhi's fame came from having gotten freedom for the people of India from the English, and he used non-violent methods, which means you have a great big dark elephant-type creature sitting down on a little white mouse. But here in America, you have a little black mouse trying to pull a sit-down, non-violent tactic on a white elephant.
This, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, just for a minute, and then I'll exercise non-violent methods to enforce a break. Just go ahead.
Non-violence is more effective when you have large numbers of people. That is what we've found out in Birmingham. It's what we've found out all over North Carolina.
What did you gain in Birmingham?
Now, wait a minute. Let me tell you what we've gained in North Carolina.
What did you gain in Birmingham?
Let me tell you what we've gained there. He can answer that. This was his campaign in Birmingham. Ask me about our campaign.
What did you gain in North Carolina?
Let me tell you what we've gained. We've gained jobs. We've gained open employment in Greensboro, North Carolina. One of the officials of the city who is in charge of employment has announced that hereinafter all city employment will be on a merit basis and there'll be no discrimination. A committee has been set up whereby grievances of individuals who feel that they've been discriminated against because of race will be dealt with. We are represented on that committee. In 6 cities in North Carolina, the theaters have desegregated. Places that serve the public in 5 cities have desegregated. And the whole state is becoming an open state. Now, wait a minute.
Is it a gain to go to a theater for a man who hasn't got a job?
It's a gain to get a job. It's a gain to get a job, and it's jobs that we're providing. Now, it's a gain also to go to the theater. It's a gain because it's not the theater so much, it's not the cup of coffee at the lunch counter. It's the dignity that a person achieves. Is it a gain to have a business over on the other side of the tracks to which you can go, but when you walk downtown, you're discriminated against and cannot go there? What I say, Mr. X, is that all places that serve the public, black and white, must serve all members of the public. We are members of the public, whether you want to admit it or not. If we're not members of the public, then what are we?
Why do you have the race problem in this country if we're members of the public?
We're members of the public, and that's why we are trying to wipe out racial discrimination.
You'll never wipe it out with a desegregated theater.
Well, I
we're wiping it out with jobs.
May I, however, ineffectually, over the past 60 seconds, try to have a break now, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Overall culture. Negroes increasingly are finding something in their background, their heritage, their culture to contribute. This, I think, is the future of America.
Malcolm X, I wonder whether you can accept the notion that a white man is no more responsible for his skin than is a man who is black.
If he's not responsible for his skin, he is responsible for his deeds. And collectively, the white people in this country are guilty today and must